This is Max Shares for Pro Boxing Fans. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined for the very first time by Frank Gilfeather. I mean, Frank, the world that I work in boxing and media, I obviously know who you are, but for people that maybe haven't seen your content before, just who are you? What got you into boxing, and where are you in the boxing world right now?
Right, I'm in social media boxing land. After well, I started boxing when I was up. When I say started boxing, I was about four when I first went to my dad's amateur boxing club.
Mm.
So that was what, 75 years, 76 years ago. Um, and now here I am, having had a long career, 56 years or something like that, as a journalist and a broadcaster. I had what you might call today an elite amateur boxing career in those days when you were boxing every other week. And when you got to reach a certain level, as I did, boxing for my country, then I was boxing international events all over the place. So that's a kind of brief summary of what. And then the social media stuff started about 3.5 years ago. We just stuck something on TikTok, and it kind of spread like wildfire. And here I am with I think 1.3 million followers across three channels. And it's good fun. I enjoy it, and I do seminars. I should say that, that, for example, this weekend coming, I'm doing three seminars over 2 days in London, in Kent, and in Surrey. And that's part of what I do that I really, really enjoy, engaging with boxers and trying to make the little changes and tweaks that would give them improvement in what they do.
Definitely. I do want to touch on that amateur background. And like I say, it is an elite amateur background, the amount of fights that you had. And I think boxing's one of those weird sports that in any other sport you hear the word amateur and professional and you think there's difference, but in reality in boxing a lot of the amateurs that stick around and like I say they have those fights and they do the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games and all these things, the crossover's not like that. In boxing a lot of the amateurs are as good as the professionals if not more. For you nowadays, I mean the boxing world continues to change. A lot of people almost turn over professional maybe too soon. Obviously the money we know is in that professional game and the world titles and things like that. Just for you, how much kind of credit and how important is it getting the amateur pedigree and sticking in the amateurs and building up your resume there and getting your experience really?
Yeah, I think you need to get that kind of experience because that's the only way you learn by making the mistakes.
Mm.
But amateur boxing at an elite level is exceptional. It's very, very good. Now, what you've got to remember is that nowadays there are much fewer shows around than there were in my day. Even growing up in the youths, you were boxing in various club shows throughout the district where you were. When I was in my district, it was called at the time, that's gone now, the Midland district in Scotland. You were boxing in places like Perth, Forfar, Montrose, anywhere there was a boxing club. They would stage a show, and we're not just talking about one show a year. For example, in the gym, one of the gyms I boxed in as a kid, and this was one run by my dad, he would stage a monthly show in the gym, which was a proper show, with referees and judges, all the officials there, and it was designed to give young boxers experience in actually taking part in a contest. And so you built that up. You were boxing all over the shop, and then when you became more and more proficient and started winning youth titles and then senior titles, and then boxing for your country, I mean, you were boxing all the time, and that's why I was able to. And people like me, I was able to accumulate around about 200 contests. And now young boxers look at me in incredulous and say, "How could I mean, you have 200 contests?" And I have to explain what I just told you there. And if you take a guy like Dick McTaggart, for example, from Dundee, who won the Olympic gold at lightweight in 1956 in Melbourne, he stayed amateur his entire career, and he had 634 contests, and he lost just 20. It's phenomenal. So, and if you look at the Eastern European bloc of countries, guys like Usyk and Lomachenko and Bivol, they built up huge amateur records before turning professional. But of course, in my day, in the Eastern European countries, the communist countries, they weren't allowed to turn professional. So they stayed amateur for their entire career. What that meant was that we were going to places like Romania and Bulgaria and East Germany, as it was in those days, and boxing against, we were teenagers, 18, 19, boxing against mature men. And that was a huge difference. So they built up all their reputation and their skills and technique over a longer period. And so that's how you can see where Usyk is coming from and these other guys I've mentioned.
Definitely. I want to leave this question open for you to take it any way you want. From the day you step foot in a boxing gym, like I say, like 4 years old, starting boxing to where we are now, what would you say is kind of like the biggest change that's happened over these years? How has boxing changed to you?
Well, let me put it into context. When I finished boxing
Mm,
in my early 20s, because I had to concentrate on work and so on, I kind of fell out of it. I lost interest. I didn't know who was boxing. Didn't pay any attention. Whereas when I was boxing, I had buying the boxing news every week in the Ring magazine. I was reading everything I could, but then I just lost interest. And then when I started in recent years, I started going to a few professional um, promotions. Now, here's the thing: I keep telling people, people have often said to me, "Oh, so and so's professional." Yeah, what does that mean? Well, it means they think it means he's great, he's good because he's professional. And
yeah,
I point out, no, it means he gets paid. That's what the word professional means. It doesn't mean he's any good. It means he gets paid. Because I started going to a few professional contests, I was horrified by the standard up here in Scotland, certainly.
mm,
And even some of the stuff I've seen on TV. And recently I've watched different promotions like on BBC Boxer, and I've watched some of the zone stuff. The undercard, you think, wow, is that what we've come to? The standard is awful. And I don't like the professional boxing scene in Scotland because it's not like a hall or an arena where people pay their money and go and watch it. It's done in the boxing dinner setting.
okay,
And of course, what does that mean? It means they've got access to alcohol. So by midway through the night, half the audience are drunk. And in fact, I've seen some dancing on tables in between contests. And you think, well, hang on a second. I've been to shows where you've got four bouts
mm,
for the whole night. So what they're doing is they put one bout on. It might finish early. You got to wait, I don't know, 40 minutes for the next contest. Meanwhile, all these people are drinking, getting drunk, and the boxing becomes incidental. It's a night out. Oh, and there happens to be boxing. It's almost like the cabaret, and we're not really paying attention. Uh, so the people who go to boxing, I'm not. This is generally. It's difficult to generalize, but this is in the instances that I've witnessed. I'm not going there for the boxing. It's a night out. You
yeah,
know, I actually had to approach a bunch of guys, young guys, dressed up to the nines and got their waistcoats on and all that, and saying, "Sorry, you're going to have to sit down. I can't see you standing." They're standing up at the table and they're going, "What? Sit down." And I think they get a shock at being challenged. But hang on, I'm paying my money.
mm,
I've had the meal. Now I want to watch the boxing. So that's the big change for me. When I boxed, if you think about it, when I boxed, and this was in the amateurs, England against Scotland, Royal Albert Hall, 5,500 people there, not a drink in sight,
mm,
live on BBC television. When I boxed in Glasgow in Scotland for Scotland against, Germany, Italy, Denmark, all it was an arena setting. Nobody had a drink. They went there for the boxing. So that's the big change. I don't like it.
I find that really interesting. I've not thought of it. Like I said, when I go to amateur shows, obviously nowadays that does creep in the alcohol and things like that. But it's like I say, even at the professional level, it is for a lot of people, it's just an excuse to go out and to socialize rather than to actually watch the boxing, isn't it? And speak to you and not ask about this fight, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. I saw Cal Froch debating whether it's the biggest fight in British boxing history. I mean, is it the biggest fight in British boxing history? And just which way do you lean on that, Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua?
Yeah, well, listen, the biggest fight in boxing history? No, I don't think so. Now you're asking me. I mean, there've been dozens and dozens of big fights in British boxing history that would be far better. I mean, we're talking about the heavyweights get all the attention. The attention. People are obsessed with the heavyweights, and I've got to say that further down the weight divisions, there are few talented boxers coming through at world level. Very few at world championship level. The heavyweights grab all the attention, especially now because Britain's dominating the heavyweights, and so you know it's going to be one of these things. Joshua has a dodgy jaw. We know that. Uh, Fury is not as mobile as he was 10, 15 years ago. We could see that, could see what the weight that hangs over his belt, for example, that he's not a natural athlete. I don't think he's a mega puncher either. I think Fury damage has been done with multiple punches over the course of fights. Who wins that one? I find it very difficult to pick a winner there, partly because I like Joshua. I think where Joshua has gone wrong in his career is, for me, he's become more and more muscle bound. He looks as if he uses the weights too much, and that's a thing that's frowned upon, if you like, in boxing, certainly in traditional boxing. I would like to see more of a fluid Anthony Joshua, who I think would be a better fighter. So with the heavyweights, Max, you can never tell. The heavyweights, all it takes is one punch, not necessarily to knock out your opponent, but to change the course of a fight. So that one punch, whoever it comes from, could make all the difference. I can't predict this one. If you were asking me to, if you were to push me, I think I would go for Joshua.
Definitely. Well, Frank, I do really, really appreciate your time. It's like I said, I've been watching your content from when I started boxing myself, so it's an honor. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks, Max.